bad boy. Maybe it'll be useful to somebody else. So very cool. So so you've got a client who wants to write an offer, and we're going to go into Instanet. We're going to take a look at where those folders are and how to create a new transaction, and get ready to write this offer. So let me share my screen with you. And all right, so you see this screen because that's what I was just tinkering with. So close that, close that. What I want to do is go over here. So I'm actually just finishing up a listing agreement. So if you'll bear with me 1 second. To get your home listed right away. So I've just prepared a listing package for this lady, and I'm going to send it over there for her to sign electronically. And so what you're seeing now is the very end of that.
Right on.
I probably should have saved that for you, but that's okay. We're going to go in here to Instanet, and we're going to look at creating a new transaction. So when you log into Instanet, you probably see something similar to this. This is the agent dashboard.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is obviously my dashboard, and so there's transactions and things in here. Yours may look a little bit different, but the bottom line is you're going to come over and create a new transaction over here on the left side. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to click on transaction. It's going to open up this dialog box. And what I like to do is I like to name my transactions, usually the property address. Sometimes I'll use, somebody's name. But in this case, we'll just do 123 Main Street. And that way, when I'm looking at my transaction log, I can easily find that folder.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Templates is where you're going to be interested, because in here are all of the Hampton Roads offices. And you have listing and you have sales packages in here that have been prepared and put in here by the admin, in this case, Stacia. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go down and find sales contract for the Suffolk office. And there's a variety of them here. You see property inspection. So 99% of the time, you're going to want to do a property inspection. And so all this means is the property inspection contingency addendum is included in the package.
Okay.
If you're going to list a property for sale and it's a short sale, then you'll choose this one because it has the short sale addendum in it. If it's a short sale and you want the property inspection, then you could choose this one. And you see over on the right, it says Suffolk office.
Yeah.
And this is James River office. That's the office over in Newport News that Stacia also takes care of. So we're looking for the Suffolk office because it comes pre-populated with this office identification on those documents.
Okay.
So what we're probably looking for is this one. You're going to want to offer your clients the opportunity to do a property inspection, and it's a Suffolk office. And do you know if it's let's see. Yeah, okay. So sometimes, and I don't see it right now, but sometimes if it's in a, for listings, for example, if it's in a property owners association or if it's a condominium or something, then you would choose one of these packages if it happens to be a listing.
Okay.
But in this case, it's a sales contract. You're looking to write an offer. So we're going to do sale contract, property inspection, Suffolk office.
Okay.
And now you have an opportunity, assuming that property is already listed in Rein,
Mm-hmm.
you'll have an MLS number. And so you can go right here and click on Rein, and it'll ask you to put in that Rein MLS number.
Okay.
Okay. If it's not in Rein, then you would go here to the real list and you could put in the county tax ID number. And it'll pull in as much information as it can about the property.
Okay.
The taxes, bedrooms, bath, square footage, that sort of thing. It'll pull in as much as it can from the tax record. Okay.
All right.
So in this case, and I think in most cases, you'll be able to find that in Rein.
Yeah, yeah, it's in Rein for sure. Yeah.
So let me just go, I'm going to go over here and grab this MLS number just for fun. Drop this in here. All right. And it's going to default to you as the selling agent. So if you had a different role in the transaction, you could label it. But most of the time when you're writing an offer, you're going to be the selling agent.
Okay.
Right. And then when you hit create, it's going to go through and it's going to pre-populate a lot of those documents that you need for your transaction. And that's what it's doing now. And then it'll lay those documents out in order so that you can go through them individually. And you can either print them off and fill it out by hand, or you can fill them in on the computer, which is what I normally do.
Yeah, and you just send them along to them at that point, just have them review them and then sign them.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's taking a little while. I don't know why it's so slow. Using up all my resources on Zoom, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, your bandwidth, yeah.
Yeah, my bandwidth is burned out. That's funny. Man, that really is taking a while. There we go.
Ew.
We're getting there. So you can see in this case, it pulled in a picture of the house from the MLS. This is my file name. You can change that whenever you want. And it brings in any information that it could find using that MLS number. For example, I didn't necessarily type in the street address yet, but it's here. I didn't come up with the year built or anything, or the tax identification, right? I didn't do that because it pulled it in automatically.
Okay.
And it knows that the list price is $182,500 in this case. So that's kind of nice. And then if you come over here to the right side of the screen, you'll see where it says dashboard details contacts. All of this is specific to this particular transaction. So I always go to either, if you watch Stacia do this, she's going to go to contacts and she's going to add new contacts to the transaction. So you can see right now it knows who the listing agent is. They're already in there. It has you in there as the selling agent. It has Long and Foster and then the listing broker. It got all of this information out of Rein.
Out of Rein, okay.
Right? But what we need to do in this case is put in your buyer information. So we would click on add, this little plus sign here. And we're going to create a new transaction contact. All right. See where I got that from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So when you click on that, it just brings up this really simple box. You can label any party that you're adding to the transaction. In this case, it's the buyer. You put in the name, Jane Doe, and put in an email address. That's really all you need to do. You don't need to do a preferred signature or preferred initials.
Okay.
But you need a first name, last name, and you want that email address.
All right.
And when you hit save, well, I didn't add an email address in this case, but it'll add that to the list of transaction contacts. And so it'll pre-populate then Jane Doe as the buyer on all of these documents moving forward.
Okay.
So I'm going to go back over here to the right where we have our list of forms. And I'm going to click on Forms now. So these are all of the forms that I need to complete an offer to purchase.
Okay.
The first one is your standard purchase agreement, and then your exclusive right to represent the buyer agreement, which I'm sure you've heard about.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Long and Foster explanation of our fee structure. That is the additional $295 flat fee, or the broker fee is what they refer to it as. And the best way I have found to explain this document, because we do need to get it initialed, is that as a buyer, it becomes part of the closing costs that we're going to ask the seller to pay on your behalf.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So as a buyer, you don't even really feel this $295. It's just another fee attached to the closing costs.
Okay.
Okay. And let's go back to our list. Property inspection contingency addendum, a blank or an addendum that we can make changes to or edit in case there's something that we need to edit later on. And so let's go through and take a look at some of these. So your standard purchase agreement, you start by adding today's date. So today's May 6th. You identify the parties. In this case, we've already added Jane Doe. We added her name in the setup.
Mm-hmm.
The computer automatically identifies the seller information and the broker's information, the street address, the legal description, and where you need to begin most of the time is with your earnest money deposit.
Okay.
So a lot of times, depending on the price of the house, that'll be $500 or $1,000, depending.
It's like 270 somewhere in that ballpark. Is 500 good?
500 is fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Most of the time, 500 is fine, unless it says otherwise in the listing, in the agent remarks, minimum $1,000 deposit or
Okay.
minimum $2,000 deposit. If
I've
it doesn't
seen-
say,
okay.
then my default position is $500.
Okay.
And then you have to identify how you're going to receive that money and who's going to hold that money. So usually it's a personal check. And we're going to identify who's holding that. So in this case, because we're trying not to hold those deposits right now, we might put Sage Title Group, right?
Okay.
And the next paragraph says the buyer either has paid the deposit to the escrow agent or will pay the deposit to the escrow agent within 2 days of ratification, right? So 99% of the time, unless you have a check in hand and you're the escrow agent, or Long and Foster is the escrow agent, we need to check this box here that says will pay the deposit to the escrow agent within 2 days of ratification.
Okay.
The next thing we're going to look at is the purchase price. So in this case, you're going to take that number that you and your clients have agreed on, and maybe it's $255,000. Just type it in here. And we need to identify what type of loan they anticipate getting. And you should get this information from their pre-approval letter.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if it's a VA loan, you just type in VA. If it's an FHA, you could do it like that.
I think it's going to be FHA. Yeah.
FHA.
They're bouncing back and forth between conventional and FHA. So.
Yeah. Okay. Pros and cons. So that's all you're going to do here is you're going to identify the type of loan that they anticipate getting. It doesn't mean that they can't change it. It just means we're providing this information to make all of the parties aware of our intent.
Okay.
So we start out with a conventional offer and they decide, a week from now, they want to switch it to FHA. That's fine. You may do a simple addendum to have all of the parties acknowledge that change. These boxes here, a lot of times, we don't fill them out most of the time. Some agents do, and some brokers will fuss if you don't put something in here. For me, it's not really important because the terms of their financing are subject to change.
Okay.
If you anticipate a 5% down payment and you know, 2 weeks from now, they decide to make a 10% down payment, then this information becomes incorrect anyways.
Okay. All right.
If you have to put something here other than a dollar amount, it won't let you. So it won't accept any letters. It only accepts numbers in
Okay.
this box. So what you can do is go up here. You see where I'm at now?
Yeah.
And you can hit this annotate
Yeah, I didn't know.
right here.
Y'all are open
Uh-huh.
for a takeout.
And then when
Okay,
you
all
do
right.
the,
I'll call back in a little bit. Thank you.
so let's see.
Bye. I'm gonna cheat to pizza sounds delicious.
All right. So when you hit annotate, you'll have this box that you can draw around, and then you could put in something like to be determined. So you'll see a lot of
Okay.
offers. You'll see a lot of offers that come in with this to be determined.
All
right?
right.
And you could just drop that in there if you wanted to.
All right. So,
But to me,
okay.
to
Just
me,
leave it
that's
blank.
the same thing as leaving it blank. Right?
All right. Yeah.
To me, that says the same exact thing.
Yeah, it's no different really. Okay.
So this is our witness box. And so once the buyer and the seller have agreed, whichever agent holds the contract at that point will sign here as a witness to ratification. Both parties have agreed at that point. So this is where the agent signs and dates, and this becomes the ratification date. And so it's from this date that you have, you know, be it 5, 7, 10, 14 days to do your home inspection. You have 2 business days to turn in your earnest money deposit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you have 7 days to fill out the application for formal mortgage application or the formal mortgage loan. So this is the date that begins all of those time periods in the contract.
What is 14 days for home inspection?
Totally up to you
Okay.
and what you figure. So most of the time I see them request 10 days for a home inspection.
Okay.
So you don't want to drag it out too long because most of the time the lender won't order the appraisal until the home inspection is done. So
Okay.
if you want to do a 30-day closing, for example, then you really need to knock that home inspection out as quickly as possible.
Yeah. All right.
Because the appraisal you should anticipate is going to take you 2 weeks to get back. So if you kill 2 weeks waiting for a home inspection and then you order an appraisal, you may not have it back within 30 days of ratification. Okay.
So just basically just order that, get it out of the way, and let the appraisal process roll.
Make sure that you know your clients have the time to meet a home inspector. Make sure that you give the home inspector a few days to have an opening in his schedule. You may want to give him a call and say, hey, how soon could we do a home inspection, assuming we get ratified on this property? You know,
Okay.
and they'll tell you, I could be there in 3 days. You know, then you could give yourself a 5-day contingency for home inspection.
Okay.
Okay. The next paragraph we come to is settlement expenses. Settlement expenses is where each party, buyer, seller, agree to pay their own respective costs associated with the transaction. This is where most of buyer's agents today ask the seller to contribute to those closing costs on behalf of the buyer. And so you might write something that says, seller agrees to pay up to $6,000 of deal for buyer's closing costs, prepaid fees, etc., to be used at buyer's discretion within under guidelines. Okay, so you might write something like this, depending on what you and your buyer have discussed going into this. So maybe their offer is such that they don't need any help or expect any help with closing costs. If that's the case, you just leave this box blank. If they are going to ask for closing cost assistance, then this is where we put it.
Okay. Yeah, they're asking for it. So yeah.
Okay. So And then we get into some general disclosure about deposit. You've probably read most of this. This is where we identify the name of the lender. So we might put Prosperity Home Mortgage. And then in the next box, I would put John, H-A-U-G, and I would put his email and his phone number here. And I do that as a courtesy to the seller and the listing agent so that they can reach out to our mortgage lender and confirm that he has in fact spoken with Jane Doe and she's qualified to buy this property.
Okay.
In the event the loan is denied for any reason, you have to notify the seller within 3 days because they are effectively removing the property from the market once you've ratified. It basically says you've got dibs, right? So until this contract either closes or comes apart, the home is not open to accepting other offers. So it's the right thing to do to notify the seller in the event your buyer is denied for any reason.
Okay.
This is where you identify the party is either does intend to occupy the property or does not intend to occupy the property, in which case it's an investment. Most of the time it's does.
Okay.
This is your representations paragraph. We just leave this blank most of the time. The property either is or is not served by an on-site septic system. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. This box right here is very rare. It says the property is served by an on-site septic system that has been granted a waiver, which is not transferable to the buyer. The buyer has received from seller the disclosure regarding the validity of the septic system operating permit as required. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's very seldom that we use this box.
Okay.
Generally speaking, the seller intends to provide a septic system that is in good working order. If that's the case, you check this box.
Okay.
If you have city sewer, then this doesn't even apply. And so we check this box. The property is not served by an on-site septic system.
Yeah. Okay.
Settlement or possession is our next important paragraph. And that's where we tell them when we would like to close. So in this case, we think we're going to be ready to close by the end of June.
And I get that from the lender, right? I mean, the lender
Yeah.
has most of that information at that point.
Yeah, so the lender and the buyer. So you can pretty much assume that anything in excess of 30 days is going to be acceptable to the lender.
Okay.
And so by default, most of the time we try to close towards the end of a month because for every day of the month that your buyer does not close, or so let's say, for example, they close at the 15th of the month. There's still 2 weeks left of the month that they have to pay the daily interest on at closing. So the more days in the month, the higher the closing costs are going to be. So if you close on the 3rd of the month, they still have to pay interest for the remaining 27 days of that month at closing, right? So most of the time we try to close towards the end of the month, just for convenience of everybody. Usually if you close in the 1st or 2nd days of the month, the lender will give them a credit so that it doesn't, kill them on closing costs. So, deed and title. The party is entitled to hold title to the property, in any name that they want. So if they want to put this in the name of, if they want to add their wife to it, or maybe their girlfriend, but they're not really married, I mean, they can do that, and you could make that notice here. So if they want to add, maybe their spouse is going to be on the deed, but not on the mortgage, right? You could make that information known here.
Okay. And that's not legally binding there though, right? I mean, that's
No, yeah,
really
you can
just,
always change your mind.
that's just a feel good thing at that right there. Okay.
Yeah. And you can, you can do a simple addendum to make any edits to this contract that you want, in any of the negotiation or any of the forms going forward. Even if you ratified, with Sally Stevens here, you can do an addendum to remove that.
Okay.
And this says the buyer at the buyer's expense either desires or waives a survey. If the home is in a pretty well-defined subdivision where you know where the property boundaries are, I strongly encourage my folks to waive it,
Yeah.
just
okay.
because it's, you know, it's $400, $500, $600 that doesn't necessarily need to be spent. And you can always get a survey, you know, a month from now or a month after closing. You don't have to do it now prior to closing unless it's important to them. And, you know, their intention is to put up a fence as soon as they take ownership. And they may want to have that survey in hand.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
most of the time, though, we waive it. But it really depends on you and your client. Paragraph 10 is the financing. So 99% of the time, it's going to be box A because it's new financing. And so all property taxes, insurance, rents, interest, and appropriate homeowners association and or condominium association fees or dues shall be prorated as of the settlement date. All right. If it were an assumption, which it never is, then that's different, and you would check this box here. And again, they're going to require you to identify the financing type. It's either VA, HUD, FHA, or conventional or cash. So if you have cash, they can either choose to order an appraisal or not order an appraisal. And you would make that decision on the identification here.
Okay.
So in this case, you might check the FHA box. And what this means is there's an FHA provision that says the buyer is not required to purchase the home if it does not appraise for the sale price. So this box should match your offer. In this case, our offer is $255,000. So if the appraisal comes in at $250,000, we need to renegotiate our contract to purchase because we cannot be held liable or responsible for paying in excess of the appraised amount, thanks to FHA.
Okay.
Okay. If there was something about the property that you know going in that if the seller is not willing to fix this, the buyer is not going to buy the house. If you know that there's a deal killer right up front, then you would put that here. Okay. So broken storm door, for example, you can put it in there as a requirement that the seller address that before moving forward.
Okay.
Most of the time, we leave this box blank because we know we're going to have a home inspection. And we know, you know, that there's a really good chance that we can ask them to do this at the home inspection. And even if they didn't do this one thing, we would still want to buy the house at this price.
Okay. Most of the time blank. All right.
All right. This box says that the seller is obligated to make any repairs and or treatments deemed necessary by the termite and moisture inspector. So even if this box is left blank, by default, it's 1%. Okay, and so that's what that says. So most of the time, we either put a 1 or we leave it blank. Sometimes, though, I wrote an offer last week. Well, actually, an offer came to me on one of my listings, and the box was left blank. And so I changed it to 0 because I didn't want my seller to be obligated for termite and moisture repairs at that price. I thought at that price, we don't accept the obligation of termite and moisture repairs. And so I put in a 0. So, but if this box is left blank, the seller is obligated to contribute up to 1% of the sale price towards termite and moisture required repairs. So the sale price is $255,000. 1% is $2,550. That's what they're obligating themselves to when they sign this contract. All right. Termite and moisture inspection. So you have the buyer in this case. It's best if the buyer at the seller's expense can order that termite and moisture inspection. Because that way it's coming from a company that you or your buyer knows or has recommended. Sometimes they will push back on that because the seller has a pre-existing relationship or contract with a termite and moisture company. And so the seller wants the flexibility and the freedom to use the company who has been looking out for this home for 10 years. And that's up to you and your client as to if that's okay or not.
Okay.
Most of the time, it's okay with me. I don't mind if the seller orders and pays for the termite and moisture inspection. So, but again, that's a conversation for you and your client. So sometimes you run into a problem where the seller orders it from some no-name termite and moisture inspection and you just don't know if you can trust it. Unfortunately, if you've given them permission to do that right here in the purchase offer, you can't take it back later. You have to go with the company that they've chosen. So it's best if you can offer that protection and peace of mind to your client.
Okay.
But you will see pushback on that from time to time. If there are any dwellings like a detached garage or a detached shed or something, you could put that in here. You want that included as part of the inspection. You could put those things in here. Carport, whatever it happens to be. Okay. But most of the time, again, a seller will push back on that. Most of the time, a detached shed, you know, it could be falling down with termites, and the seller does not want the obligation of fixing that stupid shed that's been out in the back for 35 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Just covering their lawnmower.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. They do not want to be obligated to fix the garage that's out in the backyard. They just, so if you put anything here, you should recognize that you're going to probably get pushback on that.
All right.
This box here is where we identify under what time frame we want that report provided. So most of the time, if I have a 30-day closing, I'm going to ask for this report within 21 days. The report has to be provided within 30 days of closing. So if you have a 2-month closing date, you don't want to order the report too soon.
Okay.
You do want to leave enough time before closing for any treatment or repairs to be made, right? So you don't want to put 29 days if there's a 30-day closing. You want to give enough time for the report to come in and repairs or treatments to be made.
Okay.
And you don't want to order it too soon, because if it becomes 30 days old, it's going to need to be updated.
All right.
This box here is where we say, if the other party does not order the termite and moisture inspection within the time allotted, and it falls on the opposite party to do so, then they're agreeing to reimburse that party whatever it costs for the home inspection. Most of the time, I'll put $100 or $125, something like that. But you know, in my 17 years, I have never, ever acted on that. Never, not one time.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of time before they remove that paragraph from the contract. I've just never seen it utilized. So usually what will happen is, you know, 21 days from now, you'll say, hey, did you guys ever send over that termite and moisture inspection? I can't find it. And they're going to say, oh shit, I forgot to order it. I'll do it right now. That's usually what happens.
All right.
So, yeah. This is interesting right here, though. So you're going to, at some point, you'll run into some problems with termite moisture inspections. And so read this part to yourself, you know, going forward, and make sure that you're familiar with this, because at some point your client is going to ask you, but a treatment, if required, shall be performed by the company issuing the report. The cost of the treatment shall be at the seller's expense, subject to the cap. The cap refers back to that 1%, the 1% that they've agreed to right here. This is the cap.
Okay.
And it includes termite, moisture, well, septic, and appraisal required repairs. And it's all subject to this 1% right here. 1% of the purchase price. That is the cap, okay? But repairs are a little different. So let's say, for example, the buyer ordered the termite and moisture inspection, and it was determined that there are termites or have been termites in the property and it requires a treatment. The buyer's company who's writing the letter has to do the treatment for the termites.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's also say there's damage under the home or at the home that needs repair. The seller, because the seller's paying for this and it's the seller's home until this transfers of title, the seller can choose a different contractor to make the repairs.
Okay.
All right. So this is good for you to know if you have a seller somewhere down the road and repairs are required. Your seller has the freedom and the flexibility to choose a contractor to make those repairs in a workmanlike manner at the seller's expense. But the treatment has to be performed by the company writing that letter.
Okay.
Paragraph C, drinking water and septic. So most of the time, depending on where your property is located, you're going to be on public water. It means there's city utilities. The city provides that water. If you're out in the country where I am, you're going to see a well. And so you just choose well, and then you say the seller, at the seller's expense, should provide a water or well test, just to make sure that the water is potable or drinkable, safe. You know, it doesn't have too much nitrates and all that stuff in there.
Okay. So you do that for public too?
No.
In other words, okay,
No,
so just
these
public
boxes
and be
are
done.
public.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the septic again. So the septic system, you want the seller at the seller's expense to provide an inspection and verify that the septic is in good working order. And the seller shall or shall not, you're going to give them an option, you know, of pumping it. Because sometimes the seller will say, well, we just had it pumped last year, right? And the county, depending on which county you're in, requires the septic tank to be pumped, you know, maybe 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, whatever it happens to be. In Isle of Wight, it's 5 years. And so if the seller shows me that they've had it pumped within the last year or two, maybe I don't require in my offer that they pump the septic again, right? Because it costs, you know, $300, $400, $500, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So this might be something that you're offering the seller as a way to save money. But again, 99% of the time, you're going to ask the seller to provide, pay for, and pump out that septic system for inspection purposes.
And again, if they're on city though, they don't have that. So do I just leave that blank then?
Yep.
Or? Okay.
Just leave it blank.
Okay.
Yep. So for the walkthrough inspection, the buyer reserves the right to have a walkthrough inspection prior to settlement to determine the property is substantially the same condition as of the date of this agreement. And so we always ask the seller to be responsible for keeping the utilities on for the purposes of our walkthrough inspection. So this little box right here.
Okay.
All right. If it's not a condominium, then we check here. It's not a condominium.
Mm-hmm.
It's not in a property owners association. We might check this box here.
If
it is, then we just check that it is, and we come over here and we put how much are the property owners association dues
okay.
or fees. And same thing with condominium. If it is a condominium, then right here we're going to put it's, you know, $87 a month or whatever it happens to be. We don't have a lot of co-ops in this area, so 99.99% of the time it is not a co-op. There's a few over in Norfolk. That's it.
Okay.
Property inspection. This is where we're going to either desire or waive a home inspection. So we're going to desire the home
Yeah.
inspection. Absolutely. Every single time.
Mhm.
Yeah. I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't get a home inspection, unless it's an investor and he or she is well versed in, property condition and they want to make a really strong offer, they might waive the home inspection. Exterior insulation and finish system, or EFIS. It stands for, it basically means stucco, or a synthetic stucco finishing system. Instead of vinyl siding, instead of wood siding, instead of brick, it's stucco or the other finish system. So if there's no stucco at the home, then you would click NA. If there is stucco on the home and you want to have a separate EFIS inspection, then you would check this box right here. Or you would waive that inspection with this box here. If the house were built prior to 1978, then you would either desire or waive a lead-based paint inspection. If it's not built prior to 1978, then it's not applicable. If there are any other contingencies that you can think of, you might put them in here. Maybe this is where you ask for the outdoor kitchen. Seller agrees to convey outdoor kitchen or outdoor barbecue or the gazebo, something like that. You might put that information in here.
Okay.
Items to convey. These are the items that might otherwise be deemed as personal property, but you're asking for them to convey in the sale of the real estate. It could be the electric range, the microwave, the refrigerator, the dishwasher, the freezer out in the garage, the clothes washer and dryer, right? All of these things. Maybe it's blinds, maybe it's the trash container. This is one that you'll get burned with sometimes. So if there's a propane tank on the property, be it above ground or buried, the propane can be returned for a credit if you don't ask for it. So if there is a propane tank or a fuel tank on premises, you need to ask for that fuel in the tank to convey. I've been burned by that in the past. You'd be surprised how much that stuff costs if you got to pay for it.
I bet.
So if there's a hot tub, you want to ask for the hot tub.
Okay.
If there's a fireplace, it's a gas fireplace, or maybe there's gas logs. You want to ask for those gas logs.
Okay.
Garage door openers. Most of the time we like to get 2 garage door openers. So yeah. So you got 1 garage door opener and you want 2 remotes, right? Maybe. Doesn't always work out that way. But this is our offer to purchase. So we can put anything we want in here.
When we send this to them, what do they, and they maybe they say no, 1 remote. What do you do? And they just change it or something, or?
So you're going to send this to the seller side and they're going to edit it up. So they're going to draw lines through this or draw lines through that. Maybe they only have 1 remote. So they're going to cross this out and they're going to put a 1. And then they're going to have their seller initial it. And then it'll be up to your buyer to whether or not they're willing to accept 1 remote. If they are, you got to get your buyer to initial that change.
Initial. Okay. All right.
Well, any additional items? This is maybe where you put the gazebo. I can't spell gazebo. Or the, the shed. Those types of things. You're going to put those down here. Or I've seen, lawnmower, riding lawnmower here.
Yeah.
Or I've seen the old truck
Yeah.
in the back field,
With the tree growing out of it. Yeah.
Anything like that. Absolutely anything at that property that they want to have included in the sale, this is where you put it.
Okay.
Yeah. Most of the time, you're going to check box 2. Listing firm and its salesperson represents the seller. Selling firm and its salesperson represents the buyer. In this case, you're writing the offer on behalf of the buyer, so you are the selling firm and you represent the buyer. Sometimes you'll run into a situation where it's another Long and Foster agent, and Long and Foster becomes this dual agent. And so what we have then is designated agency. So Kelly Foster, for example, represents the seller, you represent the buyer, and so there is a designated agent disclosure that will need to be completed and filled out and signed by all parties. But it's not real common. Most of the time you're working with someone in a different firm and you're going to check box number 2.
Okay.
If the property is located in one of the few cities where there is a military air installation, then you'll have to identify that here. It either does or does not, either partly or wholly lie within a noise contour district as mandated by the city of Hampton and may be subject to high noise levels. So it's Virginia Beach, it's Chesapeake, and it's Hampton, and maybe Norfolk. I'll have to get back to you on that in order to confirm that. But this is where usually in the listing, it'll tell you, what the noise and or potential crash zone is. And that's where you would put those here so that they're identified. It's either greater or less than 65 decibels.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it'll identify which crash zone you're in.
Yeah, I've seen that on the listing. So
Okay. If there were any ownership interest, for example, if you're representing your children, your aunt, your uncle, your sister, your brother, you would put that here. You would say buyer's agent related to buyer, something like that.
okay.
You might even put if it says in the listing that there's the listing agent is related to seller, you have to make that disclosure right here.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you could be a situation where you have both disclosures. These are general disclosures here. Methamphetamines, brokerage fees, default, dispute resolution, tax deferment, miscellaneous. I like to explain this one to people. The term day shall be deemed to mean any day of the week, Monday through Sunday, both inclusive, regardless of legal or religious holiday. The term business banking day shall mean Monday through Friday, except federal holidays. So in short, what this means is when we say we want 10 days to do a home inspection, it doesn't discount for weekends or holidays. It's literally 10 days,
Okay.
regardless of what day of week that falls on. So that's how I explain that. This box here deals with the use of electronic signatures, and we get our buyer and seller to initial their willingness to accept by electronic signatures as legal and binding. And now we've gotten to our signature page, and you can see it's pre-populated with your information and your buyer's information. And then the seller, the listing firm, all of that information will be here already. And so that is the 14-page standard purchase agreement. And then what we can do is we can either go over here and we can exit out to go back to our main menu. And I'll show you what that looks like if we hit exit right here. It saves all of the work that we've done, and it'll take us back to the main view of all of our forms, where we can then select the next form that we want to work on or work from. Wish it was moving a little bit faster for me. There we go. Okay, so this is our list of forms again. And so what we can do here is, I'll show you the other way to get to here. This is what I usually do. So this is the form that we just were working on, the standard purchase agreement. And we can also go up here to transaction forms in the middle, and it'll load all of those forms here so that we can just click on to our next form. So I'm just going to click the next one here. This is our exclusive right to represent the buyer agreement. And so this is what we fill out. You know, for the purposes of, we can put a street address in there, or we can just put in residential property to cover us on anything that we might find going forward. Usually we're going to date this. What's that?
Just in case it's
a coverall.
Yeah, property.
Yeah, it's a coverall.
Okay.
So we're usually going to date this, you know, I would say the day that we actually went to see the property would be a good time to start this agreement.
Okay.
Right? And then I would say we should run this at least through maybe a month past the day in which we anticipate it closing. So if we're going to close in July or in June, then I would extend this all the way through July or August.
Okay.
Just to make sure that if there are any delays in the transaction, that there's no gaps in my right to represent the buyer in this transaction. This is where we talk about compensation here. And so most of the time, I check this box here, and it says the compensation offered by the listing firm. And different agents have different thoughts on this. Some will go up here. Some will check this box and they'll put 3% here. And that's fine if you want to do it that way. My thought though is that sometimes a listing agent or a listing firm doesn't pay 3% to the buyer's agent. Sometimes they pay 2%. Sometimes they pay 2.5%. Am I going to go back and charge my buyer the difference between that 2 or 2.5 and 3? I've never done it. I don't think I would do it.
Yeah.
So for me personally, I check the box that says I'm willing to accept the compensation offered by the listing firm as my payment, and $295.
Yeah.
If it's, unless they're a veteran getting a VA loan, then I charge them the $295 flat fee.
Okay.
Okay. And then right here, this is just as an added protection. What this paragraph says is that if any time within however many days, 180 days, my client goes back and buys one of the homes that I have shown them that they owe me compensation.
Okay.
So let's say, for example, you know, you showed them a house last week and at the time they weren't really interested. And so your relationship kind of dissolves. You know, you figure they're not serious right now. They go on down the road. You go your way, they go their way. Well, a month from now, it ended up, they went and got another agent to sell them the same house that you showed them. At that point, they become legally liable under this agreement to pay you the compensation or an equivalent of the compensation being offered by that listing firm for that transaction. So it's totally up to you and your broker as to whether or not you decide to sue them for the compensation.
Okay.
So, and I personally have never experienced anything like that. I'm sure I've been, you know, abused in some way, but what I don't know don't hurt me.
Yeah, I was gonna say sometimes bygones is just easy.
Exactly. So Betsy has actually taken a client to court and won her commission. So it does happen. It does happen.
How you going?
So we can go back up here now and we can go on to our next form. So this is the explanation of fee structure that I think you and I talked about. So unless it's a military member getting a VA loan, I charge most all of the other clients this $295 fee.
Okay.
And I get them to initial this document. I wish it was moving a little faster. Gosh, what a bummer. So, yeah. And I just get them to initial it right down there. So, all right. So let's say, for example, we've now completed all of the documents. We have them here. So you don't necessarily need all of these documents. You know, you'll have to make that determination. For example, you don't need a dual agency representation agreement if we're not in a dual agency situation. So just because the document is in your packet does not necessarily mean that you need it. Okay, it may or may not apply to your particular situation. Most of the time, you will want. Let's say, for example, what's not in here is the COVID-19 disclosure, right? Well, we need that. And so what we can do is we can go here to the little add button right here where my mouse is. We're going to go find that document. So we're going to hit add. And we're going to wait 15 minutes for this to load. Okay. We're going to go over here and we're going to type in COVID. We can search for any document we want. Okay. I'm going to click on that. You see it put the check mark over here?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. And then I'm going to click add. And so now it's adding this document to my transaction. And I'll just scroll down here and find it. So here it is. This is the new COVID-19 addendum that needs to be signed by both parties. And you can see it pre-populated with all of the information that we already have in our transaction. All we have to do is to figure out which paragraph we want to fill out. So this says that a 15-day extension, and this says a 30-day extension, right? And this says it could be a combination of both the 15 and the 30. So what I do is I get my client to initial the 30-day paragraph too.
Yeah. Okay.
And I send it over, I send it to everybody. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go to exit. And let's say, okay, I'm ready now. I think I'm ready for electronic signatures. I'm going to click this little box here. It checks all of the documents in this list. All right, but I know I don't need, let's see, I don't want to send the broker fee notice to my client. That's none of their business, really. They don't need to acknowledge it. They don't need to initial it. They don't need to sign it. It's here because I will at some point need to send it to the listing agent to sign off on my compensation. But I don't need to send that to my buyer. So I've unchecked that box.
Okay.
Now that I've done that, I'm going to send the rest of these to my client for electronic signature. So I've got them all checked here, the ones that I want. I'm going to click this little basket. It loads all of the documents for me to confirm, yes, these are the ones that I want to send to my client. I can either save them as a PDF, I can just straight up email them, or I can hit this one, sign and authenticate, the little pen icon. I'm going to do that. And I'm going to wait 15 minutes. I just did this an hour ago. It didn't take this long. It must be something to do with Zoom and my bandwidth.
Yeah.
Let's just wait a minute here and I'll show you what this looks like. Okay, so this is your Authenticate starting point. This is your dashboard. Single sign-in or a sign-in line means that only one party can sign the document at a time, and it's going to go in the order that you lay out. So for example, it'll send it to Jane Doe first, and once Jane Doe has signed it, then it will send it to John Doe, her husband, for him to sign it. And once he's signed it, then it's going to automatically send it to me for my signature, or in any form that you designate, any order that you designate. I used to do it that way. I don't do it that way anymore. Stacia likes it that way. I don't. Totally up to you. I like simul-sign. It sends it to everybody at the same time, and it doesn't matter who signs it first.
Okay.
Okay, so I always go with the simul-sign. And then you're going to come down here and you're going to click on participants. Open that up. And this is where we're going to select which participants we want. So in this case, I know me as the selling agent, I need to sign it. So I'm going to click remote signer because it defaults you to a reviewer, in which case you don't have anything to sign.
Okay.
But I need to change that to remote signer. I also need to add my client Jane Doe as a remote signer. In this case, that's it. I don't need anybody else to do anything with this at this point. I don't want to send it to the listing agent. I don't want to send it to anybody else, just me and my client. I don't want to send it to Sage. Sometimes what I do is I might add Stacia and send her a CC. That way when it becomes ratified, she's going to get it. But we're not there yet. So for you and your purposes, making an initial offer, it should just be you and your client.
Okay.
So when you hit add, you'll be the only two that receive this document for the purposes of electronic signature at this point. There's a little exclamation point here, and that's because I didn't put an email address in for Jane Doe. You see it's missing.
Mm-hmm.
If I click on that, it says the participant is missing required information. And so it'll open up her dialog box, and I can put in Jane Doe at gmail.com. And then it's going to say custom signature. This is a part that trips a lot of people up because I can't save it right now unless the custom signature is either there with initials or not there. I always take it out. So now that it's gone, I can save it. If I tried to save it with her name here,
Yeah, that's weird.
no
Why-
initials, it's going to give me an error.
Okay, so just delete it. All right.
Yeah, I delete it. Or you could come down here and put JD, you know, for her custom initials.
Yeah.
But she might want to do something different. So I always delete it and I come up here and I hit save. Now that I've added an email address, it will allow me to move forward in this process. Just gotta wait a minute or two. Okay, so here are all of the documents that we've loaded into this transaction. You can see them all here. The little yellow things means that Authentisign already knows where the signatures go. You're going to look at them to confirm they're in the right place, but most of the time they're perfect. And then we're going to hit design. It's going to load all of the pages into our Authentisign Design Center where we can edit where the signatures and where the initials need to be placed if there are any adjustments to make. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Loading, loading, loading. Okay. So let's see. Where's my, yeah, so I'm going to come over here to my tools on the right side. And you see the little Zoom thing. It has nothing to do with Zoom meetings. It has to do with visibility. So I'm going to click on the plus sign, make this a little bit bigger. Okay. So then we're going to scroll through our document. And let's say, for example, see, this has already been inserted with a JD for our client.
Yeah.
But let's say, for example, this is a counter offer, or we're making a counter offer. One of the things you can do here is you can use these tools to click and drag through something like that. This is just an example. And then I want to initial that change. So by using these tools over here on the right, you can mark up and initial any changes to the document. because this was an example, I'm gonna go ahead and delete that now. You can click on edit and delete anything that you do to this document here. So that's gone now.
So if you did that, right, and then you initialed it, do you need to add, you need to add her, well, whoever the client is, right, their initials to that, and then potentially even the seller's stuff to that. Is that right?
So you don't add anything for the seller. When you're making a
Oh.
revision, yeah, if you're making an edit to the contract, and only your client will initial it. So that it wouldn't necessarily be you making an initial. It's just the clients that have to initial changes to the document. You only serve as a witness to those changes by your signature. Okay, so we're going to scroll through this 44-page document. We're going to make sure that my client's initials and signature blocks are where they're supposed to be. We asked for the gazebo, the shed, the lawnmower, the old truck in the back field. We want her to initial the bottom of each one of these. So here's the electronic signature disclosure. We want that, and we want her to sign here. I'm going to sign it right here. Okay, so here's a document. This is our exclusive right to represent. All right, so we're going to accept the compensation offered by the listing firm, but you can see there's no signature box here. There's a place for it, but it's not here. So over in the top right, I'm going to change it from my name to Jane Doe's name. Did you see where I did that?
Your picture's over top of it, but yeah.
Let me move that. How about that?
Yeah, the video's over top of that.
Oh, I gotcha. I gotcha. So in the top right corner, it has signer, and there's a little drop down, and you can switch from any party in the transaction so that you can grab those appropriate initials.
Okay.
So in this case, I want Jane Doe's signature to be placed right here. And I want to go back and I want to get Jane Doe's initials on this page right here. Okay.
Okay.
And then I'm going to keep going. So I also need Jane Doe to initial this page. And if it's not there by default, then I need to add it. And that's what we're doing. We're just going through to make sure that everything is initialed or signature where it's supposed to be. If I add a signature, I'm going to add a date. In this case, I need to sign this as well as the agent and date this as well. In this case, I need to add her initials here, Jane Doe. I need to add Jane Doe's signature here and date. Everything else so far so good. All right, that looks good. Affiliated groups. Okay, I need her to sign here and here. And that looks good. The COVID-19 addendum. I'm going to get Jane Doe to initial as the buyer right here. And she's already set up to sign it. This is just a blank addendum. So I actually wouldn't include this in my signature package. There's no reason to sign it because it's blank. So you don't ever want to sign an addendum that's blank because Lord knows what somebody's going to put on there after you sign it. That would be terrible.
Yeah.
So, okay. And then this is the wire fraud disclosure. I need her to sign here as well. And that's it. So we've gotten to the end now. So we have her initial and her signature everywhere we want it to be in our package. Okay. So I'm just going to go back up. Let's see. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to hit next. Can you see this in the top of the screen?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just going to hit next. All right. And now we are at the end, and we can either send the invitation just like this, and it's going to send it to each party in the transaction at the same exact time. And it doesn't matter who signs it first. Or sometimes what I'll do is I'll go in here and I'll customize the message. So the subject line generally is fine, and it says, Jane Doe, you're being invited to review and sign a document for 123 Main Street. So I'm fine with the subject line, but sometimes I want to personalize the message. And it says, I made the changes we spoke about, you know, let me know, something like that. Whatever you need to say, this is a good place to say that. And then we just hit save and we hit send right here. So I'm not going to actually send it because I don't know janedoe@gmail.com.
It might be a real person. Yeah.
It might be. It might be. But that, in a nutshell, is where you find and create a new transaction, how you go through all of the documents, figure out which ones you need, which ones you don't, set it up, and go through the Authentisign process.
Okay, right on.
Any questions
appreciate it.
about that process? And then once you've done that and you go back here to the agent dashboard, you'll see that transaction right here in your log.
Okay.
Okay, so there's 123 Main Street. This is the transaction that we just did. And at any time you can go in here and click on it. It'll open up that transaction again for you. Here's all of the forms that we filled out.
Okay.
Yep. Cool.
Right on. I
If at any
appreciate it.
point you want to just get into your Authentisign, you can do that over here on the left as well. So if you want to start a new Authentisign, if you want to go over here, to click on the little pen icon, you can see these are all of the electronic signature packages that you've sent out throughout your career or your life. So it goes back a long, long time. All right, my man.
Right on.
I need a drink.
I know. I'm dangerous now. Watch out.
Well, hopefully that's enough to get you started, and you know, everything that you need should be in there.
Okay.
If you need help, don't hesitate to reach out, man. We can do this all day long.
All right. Right on. I really appreciate it. And I will be buying you a drink once this COVID thing's done.
Yes.
I
Very cool, my
appreciate it.
friend. Very cool. So let me know if you need help, but I wish you the very, very best of luck, man. I hope this works out for you. Get her done, and let me know.
Will do. All right. Appreciate it, Jason.
All right, see ya.
See ya.